The word kosher is everywhere. But what exactly is kosher?
I don't even know what a kosher meal is.
I've heard all the hot takes. It means a rabbi blesses the food, that it's basically the Jewish version of healthy, that it's a bunch of outdated rules no one needs anymore. But the truth is way more involved than most people realize, and way more impactful on the world around us. In fact, one of the most iconic foods out there actually changed its secret ingredients because of kosher laws. Don't worry, I'll tell you which one and share the wild backstory at the end of this video. But first, let's take down 5 of the biggest myths about kosher food, one bite at a time. Number 5, kosher food is blessed by a rabbi. Picture this, a rabbi stands over a conveyor belt of Oreos, whispering Hebrew blessings over each passing cookie, like some sort of mystical snack wizard. Sorry to burst your bubble, but that's very much not how it works. Kosher has nothing to do with blessing the food. It's about how food is made. When something is kosher, it means it follows a detailed set of guidelines about ingredients, preparation, and even the equipment used. There are so many rules that people look for certain symbols on packaged foods to make sure they're kosher. But to get one of these certifications, there has to be a kashrut expert around when the food is getting made. So what's he doing if he's not blessing the food? He acts as a kosher supervisor called a mashgiach, like an industrial quality control ninja with a deep knowledge of Jewish law. He verifies ingredients, confirms cleanliness, and makes sure that equipment hasn't been exposed to non-kosher foods. Fun fact, that includes making sure non-kosher pests like bugs or rats don't accidentally slip into the supply chain. Sometimes they literally scorch industrial vats with boiling hot water to make sure they don't become kosher compromised between runs. So does anyone actually bless the food? Yeah, Jews say blessings over food right before they take a bite.
Always gotta make a blessing. Blessing
Oh yeah,
first.
the blessing!
But the blessing doesn't make it kosher. It makes you pause and eat with intention. Myth number 4. Jews only eat kosher salt. It's possible the first time you tried to buy salt, you noticed something crazy, that there's salt, and then there's kosher salt. So it's safe to assume that Jews can only have the kosher salt, right? That the other stuff is not kosher. That Jews have to be careful when ordering a margarita. But guess what? Both kinds of salt are kosher. That's right, Jews can eat just plain old regular salt. Pure salt is always kosher, just like any other mineral. So why is there something called kosher salt? The answer has to do with the rules about kosher meat. Some animals are strictly off limits no matter what, right? But others are fine to eat as long as you follow certain rules about how they're prepared. For all meat, you have to take the life of the animal in a specific way that's designed to be painless and as humane as possible. And then, even though you're allowed to eat the meat, you're never allowed to eat the blood. So it has to be removed from the meat through a process of soaking it in water, then coating it with relatively coarse grains of salt, which are then rinsed away. This special coarse salt eventually became known as kosher salt. Myth number 3. Kosher laws are just outdated rules about food safety. So people often assume that kosher laws are some antiquated set of rules about staying healthy in a time when there was no refrigeration or pasteurization. The classic example is the pig. Pigs are famous for 2 things, not being kosher and rolling around in their own filth. Yeah, so for the most part, kosher animals do seem less dirty than non-kosher animals. Animals that eat other animals? Not kosher, like vultures and scavengers and basically all the animal villains in any animated kids movie. Even in the ocean, creatures that aren't kosher tend to be the bottom feeders, feasting on the rotting bits of other creatures. So I can understand why people might think the whole point of kosher laws was not to get sick. And sure, there were probably some health benefits to eating kosher back in the day, but if you reduce the purpose of keeping kosher to just health, you're missing the point. In Judaism, we maintain the traditions of our ancestors, even when they don't have an obvious purpose to us. That's baked into the idea of tradition. It's kind of the point. Our faith values certain commandments as coming directly from God, like resting on Shabbat, respecting our parents, not stealing, and keeping kosher. We don't really need more of a reason than that to keep the commandments of our faith. But even so, I think keeping kosher does have tangible benefits even in our modern world. Kosher asks a question that's always relevant. What does it mean to eat with awareness? Checking if something is kosher forces us to ask, where did this ingredient come from? What equipment was used? What else was on the assembly line? Was it prepared ethically? Kosher was clean label before clean label existed, ahead of its time by over 3,000 years. And that's all before we even get to the psychological benefits of being a mindful, ethical, disciplined eater. The point is, kosher may be ancient, but it's anything but obsolete. It's a reminder that what we eat tells a bigger story about who we are. Myth number 2, all kosher food is healthy. Okay, just because kosher supervision may lead to better quality control and product safety, that doesn't mean that all kosher food is healthy. A kosher certification isn't a seal of approval. Fortunately, or unfortunately, if you're trying to lose weight, this is kosher, and this is kosher. Kosher's got nothing to do with calories or carbs. It's about consciousness.
We don't keep kosher because it's healthy.
No.
Kosher's a spiritual diet.
Yeah.
It's about the soul.
It's not about cutting sugar, it's about adding meaning. By eating with intention, Jews turn eating into an act of awareness, a transformation of the ordinary into a connection with the divine. Does that make the food healthier? Spiritually, sure, but physically, not so much. Myth number 1. Kosher and halal are basically the same. Islamic dietary laws are known as halal, so it makes sense that kosher and halal show up next to each other all the time. And they share a lot in common. Both come from ancient faiths. Both emphasize animal welfare. Both elevate eating into a spiritual act. Both made the BLT off limits. But there are some key differences between the two systems. While Jews don't require food to be blessed in order to be kosher, halal requires God's name to be invoked while each animal is slaughtered. Unlike kosher, halal doesn't require the strict separation of meat and dairy. And halal allows some unkosher animals to be eaten, like camels and most shellfish. So while kosher and halal often sit on the same supermarket shelf and share some beautiful values, they come from two distinct traditions, each turning something as ordinary as a meal into a moment of faith. Okay, now remember when I told you about an iconic product that changed its ingredients because of kosher laws? Here's the wild story of how Coca-Cola changed its most tightly guarded recipe to make it kosher. Back in the early 20th century, Coke wanted kosher certification. Sounds simple enough for a basic soft drink, except it wasn't. Rabbis reviewing the formula discovered two major problems. One, the glycerin. Coke used a glycerin derivative from animal fat, sometimes beef, sometimes pork. Totally fine by US standards, but very much not fine by kosher standards. Two, the mysterious 7X flavoring. This was Coke's secret blend, locked in a vault with the original two-factor authentication. 2 keys. Some components came from non-kosher sources, and Coke couldn't get certified unless they changed them. Shockingly, when faced with these hurdles, instead of just settling for unkosher Coke, they decided to reformulate the product. They quietly swapped their glycerin for a kosher certifiable version and adjusted the secret flavoring so it met kosher requirements. They even created a special Passover version with sugar instead of corn syrup for Ashkenazi Jews who don't eat corn products on Passover. Coca-Cola, a global mega corporation, altered its most sacred recipe to comply with the laws of kosher. So, what's really behind kosher? Not superstition, not health fads, not outdated rules about food safety. Kosher is one of the world's oldest systems for paying attention to what we eat, where it comes from, how it's made, and what it means in our lives. It's not restriction, it's intention. And it's still evolving, still alive, and still shaping how we eat today.